Hi guys, can someone confirm they can hear me clearly?
Yeah, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, so we've come to the end of our hackathon, and I hope everyone is excited for today's session because it will be like the close of the hackathon, like unofficially, of course, because there's still tomorrow. So today we have coaching for pitching. As we said during the launch, something that we have in mind is that we want to help you guys build startups out of the solutions that you're creating through these sessions. So today our speaker is Luis Kinuthia. I've seen him, he's on the call. I'll do a bit of introduction of who he is, and then he will take over from there. So Louis is an actuary, innovator, and social entrepreneur with a passion for creating impactful solutions across Africa. With over 10 years of experience in the startup ecosystem, he has founded multiple startups spanning agriculture, transport, financial inclusion, and consulting. And I hope he gets to share with you guys his experience around those areas. So he specializes in product development and strategy in addition to his entrepreneur endeavors. He serves as an entrepreneur coach with the venture capital firm 54 Collective. And that is actually where I met him, and the London School of Economics under the Changemakers program, where he works with early stage and past-time entrepreneurs like most of us to bring their ideas to life and build viable businesses. So I feel like I've done justice to the introduction. So Louis, welcome on board. Meet our hackathon participants. I feel like a few of them will be joining in as the session continues. Greg will be moderating the rest of the session. So welcome, Louis, and thank you for coming on board.
You guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Louis.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you, Daisy, for the invite. Maybe before I start, could you just tell me a little bit about our audience, who they are, what are they doing, at what stage of the innovation are they at, so that I can tailor my communication effectively.
Okay, so the audience that I mean, the guys who are here in this meeting today are members of my tech community. So most of them are very technical, and they are working on solutions for people living with disabilities around in Kenya. So like some of them are doing something on prosthetics, others on guys solutions around visual impairments, and so on and so forth. So that is the audience that is the demographic. They're mostly students, and I can say first time starters. Yeah, at entrepreneurship. So yeah.
Okay, cool. So thank you for that. Let me share my screen. I'm not used to using Teams, so I hope this doesn't disappoint. Uh, hmm. Just a second. Let me know if you can see this.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Awesome, awesome. So welcome everyone to, wait, am I done to welcome people? Is not welcome. You guys are the hosts. So thank you for welcoming me to your space. As Daisy said, so I'm Louis, been an entrepreneur, been employed. I've done a bunch of startups, some failed, some worked. Today, I'm actually representing one of my startups called My Shapwa. I don't know if you can read that yet. So this is one of my insurtech startups that we started a while back. It's called My Shop Awesome. Branded for that. So I think I'll just dive right into it because of time. So Daisy told me to talk about pitching. So when I was thinking about this, I wasn't sure how to go about it in a way that would actually be not cliche like stuff you've heard all the time. So I tried to think through the best way to communicate this, and as much as you guys want to hear about pitch decks, to me and with my experience, pitch decks don't necessarily make a great business. Yeah. So if I come here and tell you this is how you create a pitch deck, so I did a quick search on Canva. You can see I'm using Canva here. So I did a quick search on Canva. I just wrote here pitch deck. You can see. And you can see all these templates. Yeah. So it didn't need to be worth your time to just come and tell you how to structure a pitch deck, like what to put in a pitch deck. They're all here. You can see problem. See. So there are all these solutions that have been provided already by now. Using AI, things have become easier, right? You could easily pick one of these templates and populate it without even needing to consult anyone. And you can see it has everything. So I think it was wise for me to come and talk about how to structure a pitch deck, because you can already find that in freely available platforms. See, market strategy, competitor analysis. It's all there. So I thought about approaching it in a different way. And what I believe is that great businesses are not built on pitch decks. Help yes communicate, but they're actually built on the ideas you're trying to do. They're built on viable business models. Yeah, and that would be my main topic of the day. So we'll sit down that it's moving beyond a pitch deck. All right, let's do this. So why do I focus on the business model? Because it's everything, right? If you don't have a viable business, it doesn't matter how much a great pitch deck you have, it's still not going to work. Yeah. And let me tell you, I've seen people pitch even without pitch decks. It's about understanding the business, and pitch decks is just a tool for communicating the business you're already doing. For example, if I showed up to an investor and told him, hey, I've hit 1 million customers in 6 months, my platform is overwhelmed. Can you give me what 500k USD to build a more stable platform? Just that. That's like 3 lines. The guy will give you money. Could be like, you mean you've hit 1 million users within 6 months? I mean, you must have something great. Here's my money. I mean, to be that simple, as long as you can prove customers want your product and they're oversubscribing on your product, or your product is actually needed, that's it. That's the main thing. Whatever else you put in the pitch deck, that's additional information. But delivering that viable business idea that you can prove that people actually want it, that's the main goal. That's the main goal for pitching to anyone. This even extends to pitching to customers. Yeah, they just need to know, are you solving a problem that I have? If that's the case, then all other things are just additional information. Yeah. So just that should be clear from the onset, and that will set the tone of my presentation today. I'll check whether I can operate this from Teams, but apparently not. Okay. So when solving a problem, what's the first thing you ask yourself when building a solution is, what problem are you solving? Yeah, and a good problem has 2 main characteristics, at least how we define it in broad categories. A good problem is one that is big. So you want to solve a problem that touches many people. So when you're computing your, for those who've done a bit of this, your market size, there's the term, the sum, and the sum. So you want your term to be big, like millions of people. It's a funnel. So you want your term to be big, and then your sum to be, considerable, so that when the market you can actually acquire, which is your sum, is actually significant. So for example, you can solve a problem that has like only 10 people. Out of those 10, only 5 are gonna buy. And out of the 5, only like 1, you only close 1 or 2, unless another like big corporation, like B2B business. Otherwise, that's a very small market. So you want to tackle a problem that has that touches a lot of people. That's big. That's the breadth of it. And then you want to tackle a problem that's deep. There's so many problems that touch like millions of people, but they're not that urgent. People can do without. So you want to have a problem that goes deep. So there's the breadth to the size of the problem, and there's the depth. How deep does it go? And that's basically means how urgent is it? How quick do we want this problem addressed? That's how you define a good problem. I mean, there's so many problems out there. Some we can live with. Some if I can use a solution, but if you tell me to pay, I'll be like, okay. I mean, I can do without, right? So that's the two characteristics of looking at a good problem. Find a problem that's big and the one that's urgent. The other bit is that, of course, this problem you're solving for someone, right? So you're solving for a customer. Who's your customer? So we've seen over time, guys define customer segments very broadly. Someone would say, anyone in Kenya, or women in Kenya, okay, or Gen Zs. All these are customer segments, yeah. But for you to actually build for someone very specific, you actually need to visualize them. You need to visualize there are, how do you put it, psychographic and geographic data. So psychographic is who are they, what do they aspire, what do they do, what do they want to achieve. Those psychographic data will give you their basically aspirations, their way of life, lifestyle, etc. And then geographical will give you where are they, and also I should have added a demographic, how old are they, blah blah, all this kind of stuff. So you want to be able to visualize. Like if I tell you to draw an avatar, a customer avatar, say let's say this is Daisy, this is her characteristic, this is her aspiration, this is what she wants to achieve in life. You could actually be able to outline this. So you have a very specific customer segment you're actually solving for. It helps because the next stage after this, I'm gonna get to, which is validation. You're gonna validate your solution with an actual customer. So who do you go to? Who do you go to validate your solution? So you need to have a very particular, very specific customer in mind that you could actually walk out of your door and talk to them because you know exactly who they are. If it's a boda guy, I mean, is it a boda guy in Kibera? Is it in Kawangware? Is it in Kikuyu? Okay. You have a very specific person you could actually talk to, and you're solving this is what we talked about, real problem. You're solving a real problem for a real customer you could actually identify. We see most of the time founders, especially techies, building stuff like behind closed doors for years, but they've never shown their solution to any one person. And that's usually a big red flag for investors, because you told me, I have this great idea, I've been building this app, it has all these features, I've been building this product, it has AI, it has all these buzzwords. Yeah, that's good, but you've never shown it to any customer because, you're afraid your idea might be stolen, or you don't think it's ready to be used. So for those who are aware, about human-centered design, it's all about building lean startups. Yeah, you don't want to build a solution for years or months only to realize it doesn't work. So the new approach is you build the solution as you engage the customer. That's the whole purpose of human-centered design. It's co-creating with the customer. I ask you a problem, I validate that the problem actually exists, then I start building the solution, but I always bounce off ideas of the customer that I'm building with, of course, using innovation principles, and you can find them online. Design thinking, human-centered design, all these variations. The whole goal is iteration. You build version 1, an MVP. Sometimes it could be a just basic prototype. Could even on paper, on Figma, or whatever. If it's a hardware, I could build a very basic hardware component, and then approach the customers and explain to them what you're trying to do. They'll give you insights that will allow you to build further that solution, rather than building it end to end, only to realize that whatever you're building does not actually work. So as an investor, if you come and tell me you're just building, you've never shown your solution to a customer, it's not customer validated, that's already a big red flag. Yeah, and this extends to this. So it's basically the iterative process of innovating. You build, measure, learn, build, measure, learn. Learning is where you actually present the solution. It doesn't have to be a perfect solution. Actually, if it's perfect, you're launching too late. It should be an imperfect solution so that the other features you incorporate are actually customer fed, right? That's the whole purpose of human-centered design and building MVPs and iterating. This is the same time you start learning about unique value proposition. You're solving, because you could be having a solution that, yes, it's big. I mean, the problem is big, it's deep, but you're not the only one. Yeah, we've seen guys say, for example, they're trying to build, for example, a cloud hosting service, right, for SMEs. And then in their competitor matrix, they have AWS, and they're telling us how better they are than AWS. Let's say AWS is in the US, and I'm building a local infrastructure, blah, blah, blah. But how unique are you, and why would I move? If I'm already hosting AWS, why should I move? Why should I come to you? So the UVP has to be really compelling. You could have a UVP, but it's weak or it's irrelevant. Like, for example, UVP, like it's in Kenya. Well, I can still be hosted outside. What's that thing that will make me move? Okay, so it has to be really compelling. And you can only pick these insights very early on. So don't build a product that's a generic product that nobody will ever use, or people won't actually move, because moving is a cost. For me to move from Safaricom to Airtel, I really have to think twice, right? I can't just make the move, right? So build something very compelling, and you get these insights during the iterative process. Guys tell, if you build like this, I won't buy, but if you build like this, I may consider, right? And the UVP can't just be pricing alone. There has to be other, you may make it like you're making my life simpler or more efficient. There's extra stuff you're providing beyond what is already available. Sometimes it may not even be a direct comparison. It could be an alternative. Sometimes the alternative could even be doing nothing about it. And sometimes if you look at most innovations, you realize people who are not doing anything actually the majority. For example, I keep saying the biggest competition M-Pesa has is not like in Airtel Money and all this other cash. It's actually cash, right? So you may not think like it, that is just looking at platforms which are doing the same thing you're doing. You're not looking at apathy, which is basically people are just operating using the status quo. So this is stuff you pick up during early iteration. This stuff help you validate your solution when talking to investors. Investors love traction. I think you've had this before. Like when you're building a pitch deck, you must have this, you must show us what you've done. And it depends at what stage you are. For example, if in product development stage, say you haven't launched, for example, then your traction is moving from idea to prototype, to doing a bit of research in the prototype phase, to building an MVP. These are traction, the product development traction. To you getting your first customers, maybe it's even your first free customer. Maybe let's say they're not even paying, that they're using. These are traction that you need to document through your solution. This is what you actually present when you're pitching. Be like, hey, I built this, it is validated, I moved from point A to point B, and now I want to move from, or if you're looking for funds, give me funds to move from point B to point C. If you already have a startup running, then you know it's obvious. Only two key metrics that investors want to know: how many customers do you have? How much money are you making? Those two. So, in addition to other metrics, in addition to your unit economics, customer acquisition, lifetime value, etc. But you must show growth, and the growth in the startup world, growth should be fast. For example, you can't say, well, it's 2 years and I have an MVP. Be like, boss, you waited 2 years to just get to MVP. Yeah, it should be like, I've shipped an MVP in a few weeks and I'm doing this other thing, this other thing. It's all about how the speed at which you're moving, yeah, and the market which you actually can acquire. So that's all about traction, yeah. And they want to see that steady growth that people actually want to use your solution. If you're at that stage you're building prototypes, then the key metric you'll be looking at, are there people willing to pay for this thing? Because you're building it, you're at building stage, you haven't started selling it. Do we know what you're building and anybody wants to buy? So one thing we usually teach is if you don't have the product ready, you can build like a prototype and then ship it to customers, show them to customers, let them tell you if they would want that product, and then try to get them to do some bit of commitment. For example, pre-orders. If you're building, say, like a friend of mine was building an AI cane that was a cane for the blind, but it was AI powered, like it could sense distance before an obstacle, and you plug in your earphones, it tells you, it communicates with you. But so you could build such a thing, but then who is willing to pay for it? Yeah, so you could build one and then ask guys, would you actually pay for this? And then once it's validated, that's when now you go and mass produce whatever product you're producing. You've seen guys mass produce stuff, bring them to the market, and then nobody wants them, or they have to sell them at a loss. All these things you validate at the development stage, and it's still part of your traction. If you come and tell me, hey, I have a wait list of 1,000 people, just give me $10,000 to actually go and build for these 1,000 people. Be like, okay, have they actually validated they actually want your solution? Yes, so here's my money. Because you've already shown some bit of traction, and as I'm saying, as I'm trying to say, it can be different depending on at what stage you are in. Yeah, if you're already out there in the market, you don't say you've had 20 clients in like 6 months. Yeah, in this world, startup world is all about growing fast, growing with speed. So you want to see doubling for example, your numbers every single month. So this is even crazy. You want like 10x, 20x over time, right? So traction is one thing that you could actually show that you're building something that people actually want, right? You're not just doing it for yourself. The other thing is team. Pretty sure you know about this. So at the early stages, there are only two categories of people that matter when it comes to early stage startups. It's people who are building, and people who are selling. So you want to see, do these people actually have the technical capacity to execute the idea? For example, if you're building an IoT device, but you don't have an IoT engineer within your team, how are you going to do this, right? You're building a cloud infrastructure, you don't have a cloud engineer to do that. How are you going to be able to deliver this? So you need to see, you have the ability to deliver, you have the passion, you have the zeal, you have what it takes as a person to actually deliver this solution. Remember, at early stage, you actually don't invest so much on the idea. Idea is one thing, but the other thing, the pillar to that idea is the founder. Why? Because no one startup ends up where they started. It's a journey of pivots, changing, adding, removing. Yeah, like even if you look at the most successful startups like Akina Uber, Bezos, what's Bezos' company? You know, Amazon. They didn't start. They started like he started books. Right now, he's doing almost everything. Right. So as a founder, I want to see: do you have the zeal? Do you have the capacity to actually grow, pivot, take on challenges? Do you have the ability to hire, to manage a team, all these things? So there's a lot that rests with the founder at the very beginning of a startup. So the other team of people is selling. Okay, there are people who are building, then who is selling? Because selling is all about now getting the product out there into the market. So the two most important categories of people. Others, like if your analysis startup now on HR or you have finance or you have one of these things, compliance, unless your product is really anchored into these roles are roles that can easily be easily outsourced from organizations already offering this as a package for startups. You want to have people who are building, people who are selling. So if you have a team of like 500, I've done this mistake in the past. Like my first startup, we were like 5 co-founders. That's too much. Some guys you don't even know that they call them advisor. You don't even know what they're actually doing in the company. That's a big risk. So you have to have only essential people, and this is I'll come back to this and come and go to the cap table. But this is you need only crucial people, only technical people, sorry, only critical people into your early stage startup. And this people should be able to should be able to show that they have the capacity to deliver the solution and also to grow the company. Because remember, you're asking for somebody's money. I'm gonna give you let's say $1 million. Do I believe that you'll actually take care of this money? You'll actually grow my $1 million to $5 million. So the team is very important. Yeah. So cap table. For those who don't know cap table is basically how shares are split within a startup. So if you're 3 of you may decide each gets that 3% equally. Often that doesn't work most of the time, because if one person is working on it full time, the other person is like part time. So be like, okay, this guy is full time, so you're gonna get 30, you get 20, you get 10, based on anticipated level of effort, of which again this changes over time. But you find sometimes you give too much equity, you distribute it across all your friends because you don't want to hurt anybody, and then you end up say giving somebody 10% because they're playing an advisory role or something that's not very core to the business. And then you come to me as an investor, you want me to give you 100K for 10%. Now we are supposed to have now equal shareholding, but clearly the investor is bringing much more value. It's also taking much more risk, right? So if that's why founders and investors start having conflict, because it'll be like, no, if you given this guy 10% for what they're doing, with the risk that I'm taking, I want to take 20 to 30%. But if you show you're shrewd in how you're giving equity, how you're distributing equity, not just giving people because they're your friends, then your business, your cap table looks good. I don't know how many guys have watched Silicon Valley. It's like a classic startup tutorial. So if you haven't watched, just go watch. You'll see they go through all these processes, sharing equity based on what people are doing, etc. Yeah. So don't be too generous. That's the goal. You may look like an asshole, especially if you're a founder, but let me tell you, you need to be shrewd. Also, you can go into other structures like shareholders agreement, vesting agreement. How do people earn the shares they are getting? All these other things. If you show me as an investor, you have your cap table in order. That shows you know what you're doing and you instill confidence from people you're pitching to. I'm going too fast. If you want to ask a question, you can just pause, or we take Q&A at the end. Days will advise us. I hope I'm not going too fast. But I'll be happy to recap some of these things if Q&A comes up. So I don't know which one is you're more interested in. So money, obviously. So all this are stuff that goes into your pitch deck. But I don't want you to think about them going into your pitch deck. I want you to think of them how are they organized in your startup? Because a pitch deck only communicates what's already existing. So don't view these things as this is the stuff I need to put in my pitch deck. Think about this as stuff I need to organize in my business, or in my startup. Then I can communicate to them. I can communicate them in the pitch deck. So revenue model. You want to see how you plan to make money. Some startups make money right away. Some take time. Depending on who you're pitching to. These days, guys are more inclined towards business that actually generating revenue. You've seen startups fail in Africa because they're only depending on fundraising, and once the round is finished before the next one, startup sink. So we want to see: are you thinking about how you're going to make money? Are you thinking about about your costs? We don't expect you to make profit at this particular time, especially at the very beginning, because you're investing so much your time. You're putting up infrastructure. Your team, perhaps you're actually building software, hardware, etc. You don't expect to make money from day one, but at least you have a path to profitability. Like in 5 years, I'm gonna break even. But at least you have an idea how you're gonna make money, how you're gonna maximize your margin. So basically, it's revenue minus cost. How you think about your cost, how you think about your revenue as you expand, as you move from customer 1 to 10, 100, 1,000, etc. So these are stuff that investors want to look at. Remember, investment is not charity. These guys are not giving you money because they like you. They're giving you money because they want returns. Investors are hungry, they're greedy. They want crazy returns with good reasons, because out of every startup they invest in, only probably one will return the money for the fund. So if 9 lost money, you that are going to be successful you should grow big enough and fast enough to actually recover the money for all the other people. So if I give you $1 million, I don't want 20% returns. I want 5x, 10x, sometimes even 100x over time at the point of exit, assuming you go all the way to IPO. So thinking about money and communicating about money is a serious thing that investors always look at, and they're giving you their money for you to generate more money for them. You're a tool for them to make money. They're not doing charity here. So how well are you thinking about the money thing? Especially most of the time, especially with impact space startups, which you guys are doing at PWD, that's what you guys exist in. Sometimes we build for impact, we forget to build for profitability. We'll be like, yeah, this thing will help people. Yeah, then the investor asks you, but how am I gonna make my money? How long will it take for me to recover my money? And most of the time you can't answer that question. Like if you're ever in a pitch platform, somebody asks you, can you tell us about your exit strategy? You're literally at ideas, so somebody's already thinking exit strategy. Exit strategy basically means how am I gonna get my money back? So thinking about these things shows that you're serious about what you're doing, and you can actually promise that if you give me your money, I'm gonna give your money back at a certain date. This is connected to the scaling plan. Yeah, so you're already thinking about I'm here today, I'm at idea stage, I'm at MVP stage, I have 5-10 customers, but this is where I want to go. You have that path. It may change, but at least you're curious enough and you're actually planning for the long run as much as you're starting today. So start small, but paint the bigger picture. That's why it comes back to the market segment. You said you have the market you're in is like $1 billion market, right? you think you can get 20% of that, so like 200 million, yeah, as your market share, for example. So, but today you're at almost zero, so you're already thinking and trying to craft a plan of how to get there. Of course, things may change, but at least you're thinking about scaling, because that also dictates about how much revenue you can actually be able to make. Yeah, so this is something tactical I just throw in here because I think it's important. I've seen founders, somebody struggle with a startup for like 7-8 years. They've never raised any serious money, but they're still there on a pambana too. As much I'm saying, I'm not saying that you should not pambana until it works, but you should know when to persevere, when to pivot. This all comes down to your wisdom and your decision making process as a founder. Sometimes you need to know when not to push things. Like if you keep pushing things to a dead end, you need to know when to pivot. But that doesn't also mean that every challenge that comes your way, you should always pivot or try to run away from the problem. So having that balance between knowing when to push a challenge and see what will happen, and knowing when to pivot is very important. Why? Because again, especially if you're building a business with somebody else's money, they want speed, they want growth. This should come fast. Yeah. So you have to have the right balance to know when do I need to keep pushing, when do I need to pivot. And this comes from, I think, from experience, from reading widely, seeing what is happening, knowing how the market is, knowing what market is working, what's not working, or if there are blocks in a particular industry, you're able to tell why is this industry not growing as much, or why is my startup not growing as much. So this could be regulation, it could be the culture, maybe whatever you're selling, the people are not buying, or it could be a bunch of things. So you having the ability to know this and to see this and see that round corner is usually that miracle thing. Startups founders should be able to see that around the corner, what's going to happen around the corner. So you know, hey, let me pivot, or let me do something to survive today so that I can build this tomorrow. So there are a bunch of reasons of why somebody may need to pivot. You may build a solution that is too early for the market to adopt, which means you're not making money now. So you may as well build another feature as you wait for this or that to catch up. It's a whole conversation. It's very controversial. So it could go either way. But having that right balance and showing your decision-making process, especially if you're raising after you've had some bit of experience, and you can share how your growth has been, this also goes a long way to instill confidence in the people you're pitching to. Sorry. Yeah, so basically that's the end. These are the stuff and now stories. So that's more of the stuff that should be in your business that you should translate to your pitch deck. Now, this is more of the philosophy of the pitch deck. What's a pitch deck to begin with? A pitch deck is a tool that you use to communicate about your business, and the best way to do that is through storytelling. Yeah. So we've seen guys match and mix between storytelling to drive emotions, because people you're pitching to are human beings, and human beings are emotional. And also, depending on the emotion you want to drive, some people want to drive FOMO, fear of missing out. You want to show your thing is so good that if these investors don't come on board at this particular time, they're gonna miss out. Yeah, you want to drive empathy or sympathy. It depends on whatever emotion you're trying to drive. But the goal is that communicating through storytelling has been proven to be a more effective way. But then you balance with hard facts, with actually, because you still have to talk about your revenue or your traction, all these things that we talked about. Then the other thing is know who you're pitching to. We make this mistake a lot of pitching to the wrong people, and then we complain the investors don't want to put money in us. If you're building an impact product that you know may not really scale, it won't be the next Uber, it won't be the next Amazon, but it's a really good product for a very niche market that may not necessarily be that big, but it will impact lives, to change people's lives. Then you want to pitch to impact investors, right? People who are looking at more beyond profits, they're looking at what kind of impact are you creating in the community. Yeah, so you want to do your research and figure out who that is, or whether the fund or the investors. If you're pitching to venture capitalists, then the commercial investors, then be prepared to pitch numbers, pitch the big picture, and show growth and speed, all these things, and show how you're going to move from 1 customer to 1 million customers in 5 years, and how you're going to 10x their numbers. That's what they want to hear. So that's what you should be pitching to them. If you pitch to a VC impact, yes, they'll be like, yeah, it's good, you're making the world a better place, but it's not for me. Why? Because they've been given money by their LPs. They're managing other people's money. No, they're not managing their money. VCs don't rarely manage their money. They've been given money by LPs. They manage money for these people, and the whole goal is give these guys returns, right? So this guy, as much as you have a good story and you're changing lives, they're not going to give you their money because they know you can't get either the traction they're looking for or at the speed in which they want the money back. Okay, so who are you pitching to? Other investors have theses. These guys invest in climate. These guys invest in women founders. These guys invest in emerging markets. Learn about the kind of investor you're pitching to make your life easier, so that you can tailor the story to fit what they're looking for. You could have one business with 5 different stories, depending on what angle you're looking at it. So if you have a climate angle, you pitch a climate angle. If you have assistive technology, you know how to flip that and show impact. You know how to if you have majority of your customers, 60% are female, so you want to pitch how much your intention about having either female as staff or female as customers. So always do research about the investors, but your story, you can tune your story to fit the guys you're pitching to. Yeah, and from there, it's all about stage presence. How good of a communicator are you? It's all this communication skills. So you have the story, but how do you deliver the story? Yeah. So it's about confidence, stage presence, charisma. Even if I know most techies are introverts, even if you're introvert, assume there's a camera in front of you, then go camera, lights, action. That's what I prefer. Assume you are like acting. I just need to do this for 5 minutes, then I go back to my cocoon. So while there, be charismatic, be jovial, show confidence, so that you know your shit. Don't pitch as if you could pitch a very great product. And I've seen this with a lot of African founders, I myself included, by the way. You have a great product, but your communication skill is not that good. Meanwhile, there's a guy somewhere who's so good at communication, but they're selling BS. You'll find the guy selling BS most of the time getting the money, and you building an actual product with the actual impact going home with nothing. And I've been in those spaces. Yeah. So practicing your communication is something that you can only do over and over until you perfect it. Watching TED Talks has helped me improve on this, just to learn how people deliver the story, where they start, where they end, how they hit all the important marks within a story almost seamlessly. These are craft you have to actually practice. I think that follows my next slide. So it's all about practice until you make it perfect. Yeah, this statement is true. For 5 years ago, I was working for some guys. This chick, she's a Dutch woman. She told me she actually practiced her pitch 600 times. Sisi hapa we do 4 times after nimeiva to pitch. This woman practiced her pitch 600 times. 600. And every time she tweaks something, words, until when you watch that pitch is so flawless, it touches everything. There's the emotional bits, communicating numbers, communicating future, communicating the problem, all in one story. But she had to practice 600 times. So if you've done 10 times, you think you've done enough, trust me, you're just beginning. So we're not all born to be good orators, but we can become them through practice. You just need to practice over and over again until you perfect it. So this is the end of my presentation. So in conclusion, build a great product, not just a good pitch deck. I have to insist on that. Yeah. Then solve real problems. Make sure the problem is urgent. People need it chap. Yeah. Validate your solution as you build. Validate your solution as you build. So jenga kidogo, speak to your customers, let them tell you, let them interact with your solution, learn from how they're using it, keep improving on it. Have a strong team. Because at the beginning you won't have time, you won't have like money to hire people. So the co-founding team should be very strong and should be complementary. So you bring something that I don't have. If you all have the same skill, then even if you are 10 people, you all have the same skill, you're still losing. You see, not a cohesive, a very strong team. Have a clear idea how you're going to make money. Are you selling people who are actually willing and they're actually willing and able to buy? You could build a solution, but they're not probably they can't afford it because your cost of production was too high, so you have to sell at a certain price, and these guys can't afford it, even if they actually need the solution. So have a clear revenue model. Again, remember, if you're pitching to investors, they want to see how you're gonna make them money. So always craft that inside your pitch. How are you gonna make money? Not in terms of like giving them your revenue, but how you're gonna grow your valuation to move from $1 million valuation to $100 million valuation, and hopefully, if possible, to a unicorn. If you're not that kind of business, then look for other investors, angel investors, impact money. Like they apply to Bill and Melinda Gates. All this impact money going around for different challenges. Like I think if you look at the SDGs, almost every SDG has an impact investor attached to it. So Bill Gates will take like 3, Rockefeller will have like some others, sustainable cities, blah blah. The cities assistive technology in there. So look for that investor that fits whatever you're trying to build. And with that, that's the end of my presentation. I think I was fast, but I don't know if I was fast or slow. Maybe Daisy, you can let us know.
Yeah, thank you so much, Louis, for that session. It was a really awesome session. Personally, I enjoyed it, learned a lot from it, given that I'm also trying to build a past startup personally. So I'll open the floor to questions right now. I know that this might be a new field to many. So if anybody has a question, feel free to either unmute and speak or type it in the chat.
Okay.
Hello, Luis. Or Louis.
Yes, Louis. Yeah. Who's speaking?
It's Philip. Good evening.
Philip Otieno. Good evening. Good evening, Philip.
Brilliant presentation, brilliant insights, and just a sharp way of thinking. Now, as a founder, how do you navigate around? Always the game is always skewed. There's always there's always sabotage. There's always guys bringing in especially in the African space, where guys in government are the ones who are also the same guys in the private space, and also very capitalistic in a sense, where they bully like the small fish are bullied by the big fish. So what are some of the ways of navigating around, guys who play under the table, especially because to be true, I think honestly there's that element, and if you've experienced it, you can also just share. Thank you.
If I get you correctly, I think I had such a conversation today with someone who wants to help startups like navigate through business registration across different markets, and you're having conversations that some markets are chaotic by design. And if I'm trying to navigate through that market, like it's too much energy. I've also worked in the insurance space before, it's my insurtech startup, and sometimes the regulation is put in place, but it's like it's selective. It's selective. For example, you apply for something for a product you don't get because it's another guy who has the same product and doesn't want you to come to market and compete. So they lobby with the government officials, not the government official, the government officials to make sure that some of this don't happen. So Kenya is the cartel business. Remember, Kina Jambo Pay, they tried to automate the Matatu service, and every time the cartels made sure this thing never saw the light of day, or it failed as soon as it launched. So if that's what you're talking about, it's not an easy question to answer. Honestly, it's not an easy question to answer, because on one hand, you want to build a solution for this space, but it's mad with underhand shady deals that sometimes drain or outcompete your startup. You're starting with nothing, then there's somebody who can put in 1 billion shillings and do whatever you're doing. So unless you have a very you could say it's a small group of people who actually trust you and actually using your product efficiently, and try to make a product efficient within that small group, and then hopefully maybe it will grow organically, like without, because what happens is most of the time when they're gatekeepers, because you need the gatekeepers to get to the next level. Yeah. But if you start with a small cohesive group who actually enjoy your solution, and then hope you can grow organically in a way that it becomes more customer driven than than you trying to knock on doors that nobody wants to open. But there's not one straightforward answer, because I could also tell you, leave that market, go find another market. So it depends. If I get more context, I'll be able to advise more accurately, because the others industry will be like, you know what, I'm not building this industry anymore. I'll give it some time to grow. Let me go build in another market. But again, depending on the situation, you could just start with a small cohesive customer base, and then hope to grow organically, like almost on a referral basis. That way, it's customer driven. So that question could be answered in so many different ways. So there's no one right answer unless you get more context to your challenge.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. There's somebody who dropped upon just sharing about Tam and Sam. Thank you, Gregory, for sharing that. Oh, no, it's talking about Tam, Sam, and Sam. Yeah, that's what it means.
Yeah, any more questions from the people? It's a free floor. Anybody can just unmute and speak. Still have 4 minutes.
Techies are afraid of speaking.
That's what I'm noting. Hi, Anita.
Oh, hi.
Go ahead.
I have a couple of questions.
Hmm?
Maybe, Louis, you can tell us about maybe a good pitch and a bad pitch that you've done before.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's my first question. My other question is, what if I have an idea of a startup, but I'm not techie, I'm mainly on the business side. How would you advise to go about that? And then my last question is, when do you start looking at the money aspect? Maybe if it's an impact project. Yes,
Okay.
those are questions. Yeah.
I hope I remember all of them. Okay, bad pitch, good pitch that I've done before. Ooh. Well, so I'd say maybe a bad pitch that I did before is that I didn't have my numbers right. So sometimes some investors they just switch off very fast when you don't have like your numbers right. Like they ask you, what is your customer acquisition cost? What's your lifetime value? What is your margin? I've been asked questions like what I told you, what is your exit strategy? And then you realize you don't have answers to them, or you haven't really thought through about them, or you give a very crazy valuation and the investors just shy off. So I don't know if I can pick one particular pitch like end to end, but I've done these mistakes over and over, pitching to different people. But I've also done very bad pitches, and somehow they were kind of successful. So it depends. It all comes down to who you're pitching to. Like when I started back in the day, when I don't know if you guys, I don't know if you guys are millennials or Gen Zs. When Lions Den was starting, we did a pitch which I didn't consider that good, but we were offered. They made us an offer. The guys were like, just because I like you, I'm gonna give you the money just because I like you. So they can see the holes, they can see all the mistakes you've done, but maybe you were charismatic, maybe you were bold, I don't know what they really look like because we were really young, which had just come out of school. Yeah, so it's never one clear cut. For example, you could do a pitch to investor A, they say no. You do the exact same pitch to investor B, and they say yes. And assuming they're even in the same space, like they're both VCs or impact investors. Yeah. It's about you just getting your business right and then trying to figure out basically having your basics, the basics, whatever we've talked today, and whatever you Google in any pitch deck you see, those are the basics. The other things about no communication. How well do you communicate? How well do the other investor understand you? Yeah. For example, if an investor is from San Francisco, they've never interacted with the Kenyan market, you pitch to them an idea that you think is a real problem. For them, they'll be like, I don't get it, so I'm gonna pass. You pitch somebody with context in Africa, they'll be like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. So you just have the basics, and then you just basically have your shit together, and then pitch to many investors and try to do research with many investors. Some of them will stick. Don't expect all of them to stick. If they pass on you, be like, fine, go to the next. Because they don't have the same script. Even if you spoke to, if you are like a panel here of 3 would disagree on some stuff. So it's never one size fits all. Just have your basics. You know your numbers. Practice your story. You know your shit. You're solving a real problem. Those kind of things. You're growing. You have traction. Have those basics going, and then just pitch to as many investors as possible. It helps if you've done some research so that you can narrow down the investor list. Instead of pitching to 100 people, you can pitch to 20, but it's 20 people who really understand your space. The easiest way to do that is find an investor who's already invested in the same thing you're trying to build, or in the same space. So if you're trying to build assistive technology, find one who's already invested in that space, and they're probably able to understand where you're coming from. The next question was team dynamics. If you're a business guy, you don't have technical expertise, but you want to build a technical solution, then you have to get a co-founder. I've seen a technical co-founder. I've seen guys like go to India and ship like a product, or like take one off the shelf and then customize it a little bit. You could do that, but that's not sustainable. That would be like to basically to reach proof of concept. But in the long run, if you want to build a sustainable business, you'll have to find a technical co-founder who can come in and build. Or if you have money, instead of them being co-founder, they could be head of technology, head of tech. Then you still own the business. One or another, you still have to bring somebody with that technical expertise that you're missing to build that particular technical solution that you want to build. What was the last question? Anita, please. Anyone who remembers her last question?
Yeah.
Sorry?
I can repeat it.
Okay.
Yeah, when you do start looking at the business aspect, I mean the money aspect, what you're building. For example, if it's an impact project.
Well, can you elaborate on that? Because I think you should start looking at the money right from day one. Like, it should be at the back of your mind. Because can you just elaborate a bit so that I can give you a more specific answer?
Okay, so maybe we're discussing ideas with someone, but usually what I get is, so usually my first question comes at, now how will I make money from this? And then there's some people like who will be like, that's not the first thing you should be thinking about. So what is your take on that? Is it the first thing I should be thinking about, or should just go to the project and then think about money later?
Okay, so let's approach it this way. The first place to start obviously is problem, right? There's a problem here for this particular person who you can actually identify. You're bringing a solution to alleviate this particular problem, right? So then you're describing a scenario where this person has a problem. I want to remove this problem from him, or this pain from him. So the question becomes, the next thing is, are they willing to pay for me to remove this problem for them? If the problem is urgent enough, then this person should be able to pay. But unless they are like marginalized, where they want the problem removed, but they don't have money to pay you, then in that case, you need to figure out, okay, then who's going to pay me, right? Are you gonna write a grant, a proposal? Basically, somebody has to pay, and that's you still have to think about money. The difference would be where will the money come from? If I build a solution that I want people to use, and I know I have, first of all, I can be able to build the solution end to end and give for people to use, but I don't know how to make money from that. Then I want to delay, like for example, Facebook and those other digital platforms that exist. They use them for free at some point, and then they start paying. But see, you still have to think about money at the beginning, because if the customer is not paying you, then the investor is paying you. And you hear Uber went 10 years without making money, without making. Or let's use Facebook. Facebook went all this while, say, without making money, but they were making money from advertisements or from investors. Amazon was making money from investors, right? So any solution you take, you can't avoid the money conversation. You just decide who do you want to charge. Who do you want to charge? If you have money yourself, then you're the one paying for it. Like, I'm gonna build this platform, I'm gonna put $1 million shillings into this platform. I will get people hooked to it. And then after they're done with the free trial, I will try move them to a premium trial, or I'll start charging them at a certain point. You have to think about money. The difference is who is gonna pay. There's so many dynamics to it. Or you bring in a partner who's willing to put in the money, and then revenue share down the line, blah blah. Because building is a cost. So where are you getting the money to actually to do the building in the first place? Yeah, it's either coming from the customer, yourself. First of all, yourself, bootstrapping, the customer, investors, grants, a partner who will come in and chime in, but you can't avoid totally thinking about the money conversation. Does that answer your question, Anissa?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So there's another hand, Philip. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, just one last one.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious, especially coming from, the financial industry and where I come from.
Mm-hmm.
Number one is you as a founder and you is in that business space. There's more and more focus and there's more and more eyes on sustainability. So I don't know whether for founders or for startups, is that really a thing where they're like looking at this business not just sustainable in the essence of profitability or impact, but in terms of who they're doing business with? And that's the first question around sustainability. The second one and the last one is just around the money. Yeah, there's that balance, that delicate balance between, yes, I want money to kickstart and catapult this business or this novel idea that we have. But is there a conversation around compliance, around due diligence? This money, because there's bad money and good money, and there's money that is good on the surface, but if you dig deep a bit on it, you realize, it kind of jeopardizes the business. So around the due diligence that is done on the investors for founders, how does that happen? Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So let me hope I've understood your questions. So when it comes to sustainability, the startup ecosystem, especially in Africa, it's moving more and more. That conversation is becoming more and more because people came here with Silicon Valley mindset. They started startups based on Silicon Valley mindset. They got money from Silicon Valley investors. Where you pour money, loss-making business, and then 10 years, this startup will become a unicorn. and then you can recover your money. But what investors have realized that these businesses are not growing as fast as the Silicon Valley business. So let's say you've raised pre-seed $1 million, you raised let's say seed 2 million, you even went all the way to Series A and you raised like 3-5 million etc. Let's say you're like 3 or 10 million to 10 million in the red, right? So you have to generate revenues that will actually help these guys recover their 10 million x, 2x, 3x, 5x. So what happened is when these startups weren't growing as fast, so after you've raised your series, let's say your seed, you've raised your seed, the milestones you're supposed to hit for you to get to Series A, you don't get there. And if you don't get to those milestones, no other investor in between is going to put money in you until you get those particular milestones for you to qualify for another round. So the startup, meanwhile, the startups were busy. The startup was busy scaling fast, growing fast, hiring. There was a startup who even hired 100 people in like 3 months. For something could have been done by 5 people, according to me. So you've had 100 people being pushed by the investor mostly. They're doing all these things, but the money you're generating compared to your costs, it's negligible. So the question becomes like, so your growth plan is not, as much as you're making revenue, your growth plan is highly linked to you getting the next round. It's about, I'm going to move from, let's say 10,000 customers to 20,000 customers, then I'm going to qualify for the next $5 million. But then you don't get to 20 because the market is not growing as fast. So you're left in this hole. You have a team of 100 whom, if you don't get the next fundraising, this startup can't survive. You can't afford to pay salaries. You can't afford to pay your rent and everything else. So what happens? That startup goes down, right? So that's where the issue of sustainability is coming. Like, can we develop business models for Africa that actually works for Africa? This story of putting in so much money and scaling like crazy and then exiting at unicorn, it's still yet to be had, because the only unicorn we have in Kenya so far in the startup ecosystem, sorry, in Africa, is Jumia, and Jumia is not doing even that great, which not even shies away more investors. So sustainability now comes in from the angle of, can we build businesses where the revenue you're getting goes to hand in hand with your costs, so that you're able to manage that growth sustainably. So even if you raise $1 million shillings, you don't immediately hire 100 people. You probably deploy that into revenue generating activities. Then you get in more money. So that is one angle of sustainability. The other angle is ESG. Nowadays, the world is moving to the sustainability agenda. So ESG stands for environment, like environmentally responsible as a business. Socially responsible. Socially means, what kind of other projects do you do to impact the community? How do you treat your employees? How do you remunerate them, etc.? And then governance. Do you have the right governance, basically integrity, these kind of things? So that's the other angle of sustainability, and it's such that there's some investors who actually require to see your ESG compliance certificate, and the even organizations doing ESG monitoring to make sure you are sustainable in this other ways, apart from just being too much for profit. So generally that's how I would answer the sustainability question. The question about money and due diligence. See, as Africans, we don't get a lot of funding, a lot of investors. We don't have a lot of options to even choose from. So somebody offers you money, the first answer probably going to say yes, before you even figure out what kind of an investor they are, how do they interact with their other portfolio. So yeah, there is bad money. You can take money from someone who will keep you on toes every single week. You even go into depression. Yeah. So as much as investors do due diligence on startups, you called it, you should also be doing due diligence on the investor. You'd rather pass on money that's not healthy than take unhealthy money, because there's nothing like beyond boss in startup ecosystem. There's nothing like beyond boss. Whoever gives you money is your boss. That's simple. So if you get your money from your employer is your boss, right? If you get money from customer is your boss. If you're getting money from investor is your boss. So you're always reporting to someone, right? If you get money from, the public, then there's a board of governance to oversee what you're trying to do. Those guys are your boss. So be your own boss, but there's a big myth that startups founders put tunajidanganya. So yes, there is bad money. So if you take money, before you take anybody's money, do again due diligence, figure out who have they invested into, go talk to them, see how they interact, their milestones, do they keep to their milestones, do they keep changing your milestones, are they open to change? Like right now I have an investor who we took money from, we didn't hit our milestones, so we didn't unlock the next tranche, but we were like, so like for you to get the next money, you must hit the milestone. But we've run out of marketing budget. How about you top us like 20% of our next round now to help us get to a milestone? Then you can unlock the other things. So it become a chicken egg thing. They're saying hit the milestone and give you the money. You're like, no, give us the money, you hit the milestone. So are they open to changing their pre-agreed milestones? Are they flexible? Are they good people in general? So yeah, as much as startups are doing due diligence on business are doing, investors are doing due diligence on the startups, you also do due diligence on the different people you're taking money from. There's even some money that's money laundering. Yeah, you meet this rich guy, tells you, hey, I'm gonna give you 10 million shillings. You're so excited, but this guy is using your startup to wash money. Kikumana, you as the founder, you go inside. So always do diligence before you take anybody's money, because that's when the serious stuff starts. Hope I've answered your question. Really.
Thank you.
Any other question? John.
Hi,
Joel,
Luis.
Joel. Hi, Joel.
Okay, I'm fine. I have this interesting scenario, and it's all about starting a startup from scratch, and then after 2-3 years, you are not able to continue. And the challenges is always about revenues, and particularly let's look at impact startup. You are looking at possibility of generating an impact and selling this impact to the impact investors. But you don't have a lot of impact investors who will continue funding you to continue generating this impact. And so you also have to increase the price of your commodity, maybe to maximize on the profit or to grow the revenues. So it's quite challenging, and you find that after 2-3 years, you have to close, or you can't really grow even your revenue. So how do you address such a scenario?
Okay, so we talked about when to persevere, when to pivot. So when you started, let's say you started with a grant, somebody gave you some money. The goal should be always, how do I make this business sustainable? If I don't get the next grant, can I continue growing organically, even if small? So I'm imagining a scenario, and I think I've been through this, where you start products that's, say, highly subsidized. Somebody comes in and subsidizes the product 80%. So your customer only has to pay 20%. Then down the line, you don't get the subsidy for the following year or the year after that. So naturally, the price goes back to the original amount. And now the question is, okay, this guy, if he goes back to the original amount, my customers can't afford this product. The person who's giving me money is not giving me money anymore. So what do I do? So I think this is where creativity as a founder comes. I mean, one of the values we expect founders to have is resourcefulness, like being creative and figuring out how to get out of whatever shit you're in. So it's a tricky question, especially in the EPUB space. But I believe two things. Either when you have this money, you try to figure out how to make your product cheaper, or you have like a complementary product. Like if you know that whatever you're selling is not sustainable, if the funder walks away, then you're not building a viable business right off the bat. Right off the bat, whatever you're selling can't fly and can't scale, because this guy may give you, assume you're building assistive devices, this guy may give you money for the first 1,000 products, but he won't give you money for 1,000,000 customers, right? So you're already right off the bat building an unsustainable business, which means you need to rethink, if you didn't have this money, how would you make either the product affordable, or basically have another revenue generating product that can sort of cover up the gaps left by the, assuming in this case, subsidy. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not viable. It's not sustainable. So you are doing sort of like what NGOs do. NGOs come 2 to 3 years, do a project. When they leave, everything collapses. So you have to think of a more viable business. Remember, we said you can build a product. You've identified a problem. You've built a solution to that, but are people willing and able? So if people are willing but not able, then that's a challenge, right? That's not a viable business, right? So you're more doing a charity project that's going to last for a few years, but for you to build a viable product, whoever you're selling, whoever your customer is, has to be able to pay. And if you can't bring that cost down for that customer to afford, maybe it's time to change the customer segment and sell it to somebody who can actually afford it, or find a way to bring the costs lower. It's one of the two. One of the two. Probably other guys could have ideas, but right off the bat, it's not a sustainable business model if it's subsidized. And if this subsidy works out, then the business dies. Then you need to rethink either the customer segment or rethink the product. That's what I would say.
Thank you.
All right, is that it?
Yeah, I'm thinking that is it for now. It has been a really informative session so far. That's why the questions have been asked over and over. I think guys were just waiting until 7:59 and they were like, if somebody doesn't ask my question, I'll ask at 8. And so they waited until the very last minute. But as you can see, you provided a lot of value. People learned a lot. They wanted to learn more from you by asking questions, which is really great. I like that the session was really interactive and it was more of a discussion than a session, really. And for the people who are here, I hope you've gained a lot of value from Louis. And to Louis, we invite you to Microsoft ADC on November 8th to see the solutions that the people have come up with. I hope you'll be there. Probably they might need more guidance from you. Personally, I want to meet you. I want to learn more about what you do at LSE, given I have like the biggest academic crush on LSE. So thank you so much for being here, for giving your time. I see we are gone over by about 23 minutes, but it has definitely been worth it. So thank you so much. Now these are a few announcements for the people who are participating in the hackathon. One, I'm going to share a link together with the recording to this video. I'm going to share a link which you're going to use to submit your project. So what's going to happen in that link, it's just a form filled in by your team lead. It's going to have, you're supposed to give in your team name and the repository where your project is. Remember to have your repository public or visible so that the people who are judging your projects can be able to access your projects. Secondly, you are required to submit a pitch video again so that we see. That's why we had this whole session here, so that you can know how exactly to convince investors, what is it that they look for. So make sure you have like a 5-minute pitch video. You could do one maybe through Teams as well. So you just log on to a Teams, share the screen the way I'm sharing, and then you have your team members there, and then you just go through the pitch deck or the slides, and then record the meeting, have it like 5 minutes, and then just host it on OneDrive or any other cloud hosting platform, and then paste it there again. Make sure it's visible and put it on the README. Last but not least, I know this is quite late, but for the people who are working on any solutions that involves visuals, so pictures, and they need like open source pictures, especially with labels, go to a website called Crowdsource by Google. On that website, you have images that have been crowdsourced, hence the name has been crowdsourced by people who are like taking pictures of things and labeling them. So I know this might be quite late to train a machine learning model right now, but you can use that data instead of training a machine learning model. You can use it to in a sense, validate the model that you've already trained. So other than that, thank you so much for joining. This was the last session for the series. Until next year, when we'll have our next Hack4 series. But make sure you submit your project on time. Remember that no deadline extensions. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. See you guys on November 8th at Microsoft ADC. Cheers.